Former President Alejandro Toledo was handed over to the Peruvian justice system after being extradited from the United States. Thousands protested against a new freeway project that conflicts with the climate emergency in the French region of Tarn. And in Sudan, several nations begin evacuating their citizens as the second week of fighting between the army and paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces continues. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSur studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, former President Alejandro Toledo was handed over to the country's justice system after being extradited from the United States, accused of several acts of corruption. Toledo arrived at Jorge Chavez Airport on a flight from Los Angeles after being handed over by U.S. Marshals to Peruvian National Police agents and taken to the Police Aviation Division near the airport. Toledo will probably be taken by penitentiary authorities to Barbadillo Prison in Ate District, where former Presidents Alberto Fujimori and Pedro Castillo are currently being held. The former Peruvian president will be tried in the proceedings against him for alleged millionaire bribes from the Odebrecht company to win the construction of two sections of the Southern Interoceanic Highway. The Bolivian prosecutor's office presented on Saturday before the courts the extension of the formal indictment against the governor of Santa Cruz, Luis Fernando Camacho, in the case of Coup d'etat 1. The request was filed in the first anti-corruption court of the city of La Paz, and in it, the prosecution demands a date and time for the hearing, in which a precautionary measure will be defined. The indictment contemplates 6 new crimes, such as financing terrorism, seduction of troops, public instigation to commit a crime, active bribery, and criminal association, for which 4 more months of preventive imprisonment are requested. Luis Fernando Camacho has been held in custody in the Choncho prison since December 30, 2022, and is being prosecuted in the coup d'etat case to determine his responsibilities in the events that led to the resignation of Evo Morales. On Saturday, Mexican Foreign Secretary Marcelo Ebrard reaffirmed the government would not allow any foreign army to intervene in the country. During a visit to the city of Tijuana in the state of Baja California, Mexico's Secretary of Foreign Affairs supported the position of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who earlier on Friday had rejected any intervention by the United States to confront organized crime in the country. The statements from the Mexican government come after last January Republican congressmen presented a motion to Congress to authorize the use of U.S. Army against those responsible for drug trafficking in Mexico.
We totally support Friday's statements of our President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. No Mexican will ever allow a foreign military force to set foot on our territory. And we say this from Tijuana, which is precisely where our homeland begins.
Xiomara Castro, president of Honduras, denounced a conspiracy against her government. She compared the actions with the 2009 coup d'etat. Castro remarked that those who plundered the country and got it into debt want to dress up as Democrats to avoid their historical responsibility. She also assured that those who seek to generate destabilization in the country should be called to justice, while she called on the country's conservative forces to correct their actions. Castro affirmed that the national sovereignty and territorial integrity of Honduras is not a merchandise and therefore is not for sale.
There is a conspiracy on the way. It has to be clear to the Honduran people. Just look at the leaders that are coming out, the same ones that were involved in the coup d'etat in 2009. Those same personalities, as back then, there was an impunity against the coup d'etat. Today, they are back again, trying to destabilize a government elected by the people.
During her speech at a military ceremony in Tegucigalpa, the Honduran president singled out right-wing groups for obstructing her government's actions.
I call on the conservative forces of this country to rectify, since during 1 year and 3 months of my government, they have opposed by all means to all changes and structural transformations I have proposed and that I am executing. This is not possible for them to continue in an insidious manner, sustaining a failed state with laws that hide corruption.
Venezuela's Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez considered integration to be fundamental for the processes of sovereignty in the region and to face economic and political aggressions. Speaking at the second day of the International Seminar on National Unity for the Recovery of the Venezuelan Economy, the Minister of Economy reflected on the effects of the 929 coercive measures imposed to the country in recent areas. Rodriguez pointed out that as a result of this package of illegal sanctions promoted by the U.S. and its European allies, the South American nation lost $232 billion in oil production alone. She stated that 60% of the total punitive measures were imposed by the U.S. government. This international seminar began on Thursday with the presence of Latin American thinkers and ended on Saturday, organized by the Institute for Economic and Technological Studies. In Ecuador, at least 10 provinces are facing floods and landslides after the heavy rains of the last hours. According to authorities, these effects are more intensely felt in territories of the coast and highlands. In the city of Guayaquil, about 18 million cubic meters of water were registered due to the accumulation of rain and rising tide of Guayas River, leaving 32 streets flooded and 3 people injured in what is considered the worst storm in 25 years. In Pichincha, there were simultaneous landslides in several points of the Mitad del Mundo Rio Blanco highway. Landslides were also reported in Manabi and several sectors of Ibarra. Officials of the Risk Management Secretariat informed that they are working to assist the nearly 80,000 people who have been most affected. On Friday, authorities reported that volcano Rincón de la Vieja, located in the north of Costa Rica, registered an energetic eruption of 2,500 meters without affecting any person or infrastructure. The official report stated that the eruption produced a dense column of volcanic material that reached up to 500 meters above the crater, which collapsed and produced sediment and water flows down the northern flank of the volcano. According to geologist Blas Sanchez, the volcano has shown several eruptions during the week, none as big as this one. Therefore, authorities have asked residents of the towns and on the northern foothills to stay away from the rivers and streams that descend from the volcano, as they could be contaminated by the materials emanating from it. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at teleSur English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In France, thousands protested against a new freeway project in the French region of Tarn, arguing that the project conflicts with the climate emergency. Between 4,000 and 8,000 people gathered in the town of Say in southwestern France to protest against the reconstruction of the A69 highway, which would destroy several thousand hectares of wilderness. Environmental activists say the road project will destroy 2,500 trees and surrounding habitats. Heavy police surveillance was expected as the government feared that protesters would organize sit-ins along the route.
We are here for the preservation of agricultural land and also for the preservation of biodiversity. The maintenance of farmers in their place for agriculture must be subsistence in any case, and that's it. And then for biodiversity and everything. That's why we are here today.
On Saturday, Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva reiterated his policy of growth with equity during an official visit to Portugal. In a joint statement with his counterpart Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, the Brazilian president said his government is working with great commitment to promote growth with equity in order to make Brazil once again an example of economic strength, institutional solidity, and social justice. Lula da Silva pointed out that he is building a Brazil capable of growing without leaving anyone behind, a country capable of creating jobs and income in all regions that will benefit people of all classes, races, and ages. In his statements, President Lula da Silva also spoke in favor of peace in Ukraine, stressing the need to create a group of countries that can build a relationship of trust.
It isn't necessary to destroy the world to find peace. We do not have to destroy. We have to stop wasting time. This war should never have started. Russia should never have invaded Ukraine, but it did. That is a fact. So instead of choosing sides, I prefer to choose a third way, the way of building peace. This is Brazil's position, and we are going to intensify our efforts to achieve it. We're going to talk to more countries, and who knows, one day we will find a way to sit at the table and negotiate.
Lula also suggested that the UN Security Council was in dire need of restructuring because the world has changed since the end of World War II, and the Council's permanent members do not even respect the institution's regulations.
The functioning of the United Nations Security Council and its permanent members must be reviewed. We need to add more countries, more continents, and re-establish a new geography. Because today we don't have the same geography that back in 1945. The continents and countries have evolved, and we cannot continue with members of a council who wage war. There are members of a council and decide to wage war without even consulting the Security Council. This was the case of the United States with Iraq, of Russia against Ukraine, of France and England with Libya. So they do not respect the decisions of the Security Council themselves.
The Brazilian president stressed that his government will be implacable with illegal miners and those who damage the environment.
Brazil will be relentless in its fight against environmental crimes. There will be no compromise on deforestation until 2030, and we will be very tough on illegal gold miners and those who violate the rights of indigenous people.
teleSur English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461 and enjoy Latin American alternative broadcasts. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back From the South. In Sudan, several nations begin evacuating their citizens as the second week of fighting between the army and the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces gets underway. Foreign countries have started to evacuate their nationals who were being held in Sudan amidst the armed clashes. The first country to complete the evacuation of its citizens was Saudi Arabia. The evacuees made a journey by land and then by boat to leave Sudan. After this, the United States assured that it managed to evacuate all its government personnel in the city of Khartoum, capital of the country. France became the first European country to remove its diplomatic mission and some 250 citizens from Sudan. The diplomatic staff of China called on its nationals in Sudan to evacuate as soon as possible, while Turkey and Egypt are working on a plan to evacuate theirs. The United Nations World Food Programme warned of a refugee exodus from Sudan to neighboring Chad amid continued fights between the country's army and paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces. The program reported that it is preparing to receive at least 100,000 citizens after it was confirmed that some 10,000 to 20,000 Sudanese had already crossed the common border into Chad just 1 week after clashes began in the capital Khartoum and other areas of the country. Most of the people arriving are women and children who are currently living in the streets. This came after Sudan's army announced it would facilitate the evacuation of diplomats and nationals from the United Kingdom, United States, France and China. Over 400,000 refugees from Sudan are already living in eastern Chad, and the new arrivals pose an additional challenge to the country's strained public services and resources. In Mali, a suicide bombing at Sebade airport on Saturday left at least 10 civilians dead and 61 wounded, as well as 28 extremists dead. In a statement, the Malian government informed of the attack that occurred after 5 a.m. with a kamikaze vehicle that tried to attack the airport complex. The vehicle that detonated was carrying some 10 tons of explosives. The explosion destroyed part of the surrounding buildings, while witnesses say that 3 loud detonations were heard followed by heavy gunfire. In addition to this attack, the armed forces destroyed on Saturday a terrorist sanctuary in Mourdia and killed 60 suspected terrorists in Boni who were planning attacks against the population and the military.
We heard noises after the prayer around 5:30 and 5:40 a.m. At first, we thought the tragedy happened at home. Some people thought that a building collapsed but came to ask us for help at the station. We went to the camp to inform the commander. We also alerted the civil protection. Around 6 a.m., the authorities came and together we extracted the injured and dead. It was really hard.
Volleyball matches took place in Gaston Portillo Gymnasium April 22nd. The actions began with the victory of Nicaragua against Dominica 75-31. In addition, Venezuela lost to Cuba 93-89. However, Venezuela's B-male team beat St. Vincent and the Grenadines 75-58. Likewise, the Venezuelan B-female team also bested St. Vincent and the Grenadines 75-30. On the other hand, Cuba's women's team defeated Venezuela 75-51. Venezuelan skaters won gold in the four finals of the discipline at the Teo Capriles Velodrome. In the challenging 10,000 meters, the Venezuelans Angie Anabela Quintero, Daniela Bustamante, and Mariana Bustamante won all three medals, gold, silver, and bronze. In the men's category, Gustavo Rodriguez, Juan Carlos Herrera, and Johan Corona were the winners respectively. In the 200 meters, Cuban Hector Caballero broke the hegemony held by the Venezuelans by taking home the silver medal with a time of 24.2 seconds. The gold medal went to Alejandro Chacon and the bronze to his countryman Jose Carlos Rojas. Moreover, the Venezuelan sprinters Nelly Fernandez and Wilmary Toro made the 1 and 2 on the podium, and the third place went to Cuban Adriana Cantillo. In boxing, Cuba's national team had an excellent day with a couple of victories. The boxing fights took place at the Paz de Playa Grande Arena in the state of La Guaira. Cuban Damian Duarte defeated Daniel Guadamus of Nicaragua 5-0 in the 51-kilogram category, and Rafael Duarte was victorious against Nicaraguan Axel Funes by 5-0 also in the 57 division. And after 2 days of competitions at the 5th Alba Games, Venezuela leads the medal standings. They host with their teams A and B, the most numerous, competing in the 33 discipline schedule, already won 41 gold medals, 44 silver medals, and 23 bronze medals, for a total of 109, followed by Cuba with 265 athletes in 24 disciplines with an initial haul of 12 gold, 6 silver, and 3 bronze. Nicaragua is currently third with 3 gold, 8 silver, and 15 bronze, followed by Bolivia with 2 gold and 1 bronze medals. In addition, athletes from Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, and Rocha take part in the regional event as guest countries. We have come to the end of this news brief, and you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.